Before I start, let me just inform you of some upcoming videos that will also feature my top 13 episodes. Obviously, this is the first video, and I'm going to rank my top 13 episodes from the black and white era. Now, only fully released serials will feature in this countdown, as I don't think it's fair to pick something like the 10th Planet when the last episode is still missing. Also, there are 2 other Doctor Who productions that will feature in this countdown, but only because they don't fit into any other category. Other top 13 episode videos will include the Barry Letts era, the Philip Hinchcliffe era, the Graham Williams era, the John Nathan Turner era, the Russell T Davies era, and the Stephen Moffat era. So with that out of the way, let's begin with my top 13 episodes from the black and white era, plus 2 other Doctor Who productions. Number 13. The Gunfighters. I'm starting off with not a universally loved episode, but hey, this is my list, don't like it, go make your own. I like westerns, and to see that era played out in Doctor Who is something I enjoyed. Also, despite what you may think of the serial, William Hartnell was on top form over the course of these 4 episodes. Number 12. The Enemy of the World. These episodes really show the acting ability of Patrick Troughton as he plays 2 completely different characters. But what about the story? Basically, a man who craves power is exploiting the world problem of too many mouths to feed, as there's not enough food to go round. So the more food he produces, the more power he gains. I'm told the Ice Warriors also deals with the problem of food shortages and overpopulation, but as I've said before, I'm only going to include complete serials as I can only judge what I've seen with my own 2 eyes. Number 11. The 1996 TV movie. Yes, it's one of my other 2 productions that couldn't fit into any other of my top 13 episodes lists. And when you think about it, this story is kind of odd, as it's like a hybrid version of the classic and new series. As just like in the old series, the Master is trying to gain more regenerations, whilst just like in the new series, the relationship to the companion has a more romantic nature. Although the Doctor seems to forget about that later.
Is there a lot of this in the future?
It does start to happen, yeah.
Number 10. An Unearthly Child. I can't help but love original versions of films and TV shows, and this is no exception. Okay, so the villains of the episodes aren't that memorable, but they didn't have to be, as this serial has so much information to tell the viewers, and some of that may have been lost if there was a big bad alien villain. My only real problem with this story is maybe it would have worked better as a 3-parter. Number 9. The Space Museum. I just love the idea of there being a planet out there somewhere that has a museum dedicated to all the other species in the universe and their technology. And whilst the story did run out of steam, there's no denying the cliffhanger shown at the end of part 1 is one of the best in the show's history. Number 8. The Tomb of the Cybermen. I'm not going to act like there aren't a few issues with this story, but let's focus on the positives. Patrick Troughton was at the top of his game, especially when the Doctor talked to Victoria about his family. Also, one of the regular formulas used on Doctor Who is the TARDIS lands at an isolated base and the Doctor must help the human crew overcome some sort of alien invasion. But the Tomb of the Cybermen took that formula and changed it to the TARDIS lands at an isolated base and the Doctor finds that the humans are the invading force and the base belongs to the aliens. And it's minor changes like that that makes Doctor Who great. You think the story is going one way, only to find you're moving in a completely different direction. Number 7. The Time Meddler. Well, it's the first episode that introduces another person from the Doctor and Susan species, only this person doesn't have the same dedication to preserving the timeline, he'd rather mess about with it. And who among us could say we wouldn't do the same thing if we had the ability to time travel? Number 6. The Daleks. This is the basic Doctor Who formula at its finest. The TARDIS lands on a mysterious planet, there's no signs of life, but there is an abandoned city, the group investigates, only to find it isn't abandoned, they're captured by a fascist regime, but they escape, and finally they help the rebels defeat their evil overlords. It's a formula we see time and time again, but as this was the first time we saw it, it becomes the most memorable. Number 5. The Aztecs. This is something New Who doesn't do, but I'd love to see more of, a historical story that doesn't feature any sci-fi elements. Well, apart from the whole time travelling aspect. It's just a simple story which has Barbara mistaken as the reincarnation of the High Priest of Sacrifice, although when the Aztecs believe they must make a sacrifice to appease the god of rain, she struggles with the idea. Also, we get to see the First Doctor shown in a different light, this time as a love interest, which is something we won't see again for a long time, and then we won't stop seeing it. Like ever. Number 4. Spearhead from Space. And now for the second production that couldn't fit into any of my other top 13 episodes lists. But why is it on this list? Well, the man in charge of producing this story was Derek Sherwin. He only produced one other Doctor Who story, and that came from the black and white era, so it seemed to make the most sense to add his other story to this section. Now that's explained, why do I like it? Well, it was a sort of reboot of the series as it went from black and white to colour. It brought back Unit, which would become such a big part of the next few series, and it also introduced a brand new type of alien villain, the Nestine and the Autons, who I think are ready for another outing in New Who, as it's been a while. Number 3. The War Games. This is the first story in which we learn a little bit about the Doctor's species, and it didn't give us all the answers. In fact, it left us asking a lot more questions. And let's not forget the ending of Part 9, as it's one of the best cliffhangers in the show's history. The one disadvantage this story has is we are now able to watch it within one sitting, and it's because of that we notice its flaws more, whereas if you were to watch it over the course of 10 weeks, just like how it was aired, you would probably enjoy it more than you would if you just sat down and binge watched the serial. Number 2. The Edge of Destruction. The only reason this story exists is because of lack of funds. And because of that, these 2 episodes became more story driven, which is why I like them. I also think it's perfectly placed in terms of episode order, as we started off with a historical story, followed by a sci-fi story, and then out of nowhere we have a psychological thriller where none of the characters can trust each other, but they also must work together to find out what's really going on. And number 1, the Dalek invasion of Earth. I just think this story is absolutely superb. It features the return of the Daleks, only this time they're on Earth, which they've already conquered. And let's not forget the first goodbye to a companion, as the First Doctor realises he must let go of his granddaughter so she can find happiness. So there it is, my top 13 episodes from the black and white era, plus 2 other productions. Obviously my top 13 may not be the same as yours, and if they're not, comment below telling me about your favourites and why you like them. Hopefully this list will soon become obsolete if the missing episodes are found.